What are we drinking, man?
All right, so we're going to start with our reserve Cabernet Sauvignon. So this is a product that we get every year. We bring it in as bulk wine. Obviously, we can't grow these grapes in Florida, and I'll kind of get into that a little bit more. But it's a great product. It's my favorite product that we have. It's a little bit steeper of a price point, but it's fantastic. So we get the bulk wine in, changes year to year. It's always from Napa Valley, and then our winemaker oaks it, tannins it, etc., finishes it at the winery. So in Florida, there's a law that you've got to add 0.05% of a domestic product to be able to say that you vented and bottled it in Florida. So he adds a little bit of our product, which is muscadine juice, and then quickly takes it back out through adding tannins. He doesn't actually take it out, but it takes the taste away. But it's a really good bold Cabernet Sauvignon. We've got two. We've got our house cab as well, but this is really good. Great with steaks, etc. So I'm crack that open for us, and we'll kind of get started in this podcast.
Cool, man. Let me hold that. I'll speed this a bit up. So you have 100 bottles of wine in your house?
Yeah, 100 bottles that I want to drink, maybe 200, 250 that are from the winery that I might use for tastings or give someone that, a friend or family member or whatnot. But yeah.
I'm just thinking of, like, if I got a gift from you and it was a bottle of wine from here, I don't know how I would feel about that. I'd almost be like, did he forget about me and just grab this off the shelf as he left the office?
Probably, and you'll have to ask my wife about that, because probably every Valentine's Day and birthday she gets a last-minute card that's a card that is shaped in a wine bottle, and depending on the year that she was born, which she's gotten the same one every time, it tells you what's happened in history that year. And so she'll say, yeah, I know where you got this. And it was from the winery every single time. So,
The gift shop.
yes.
Coming down the stairs, just grab it
Absolutely.
off the person who handles your guys' inventory and merchandise must be like, oh, some Christian must have had a bunch of birthdays this week.
Absolutely.
So, dude, let's start with the story of the winery first, right? Because you're a relatively new addition,
Right.
I'll say, to the legacy here. But I'll do some shots here overlaid to kind of give an idea of where we're at, people who don't know about Lakeridge. But what's the history here, man?
Yeah, so everything really started up in Tallahassee with my grandfather. So my grandfather was the original founder. Really, everything started out of his backyard. So you'll see it on our tour videos, but I'll kind of explain it here. He woke up one morning, always been passionate about wine, and decided that one weekend his project would be to plant 5 acres of vineyards in his backyard. This is up in Tallahassee. So that was kind of the test vineyard for what was to come. Make sure he could actually make those 5 acres grow and produce grapes. His father actually did make wine growing up that he wasn't very fond of, apparently, but it was all a hobby kind of thing. They were growing it out of their house. So he started with those 5 acres, make sure he could grow it. He was a CPA at the time. He was a partner at one of the big CPA firms up in Tallahassee, and started that. And one of his clients wanted to kind of diversify what he wanted to invest in, and said, I just went to Napa. I really want to get involved with the winery. Let's do a winery here. So you give my granddad an idea, and he's going to run with it. So he ran with it, planted those 5 acres. Those 5 acres turned into what was called Lafayette Vineyards up in Tallahassee. So that was 1983. Bought about 100 acres up there, right off of 75. They started the winery originally there, planted about 40 acres of grapes, muscadine grapes, as well as some French hybrids, Stover, and a couple of others. And kind of over the first 3 or 4 years realized that was not the best spot for a winery. Tallahassee is, the capital of Florida, but within a 100-mile radius, there weren't as many people as there were potentially down here. So they actually filed Chapter 11 for that winery, dissolved everything from Lafayette, and moved down here to Central Florida. So in Clermont, Florida, they had the orange grove freezes in the late 80s, back to back. I think there was a year in between, but the citrus industry was going downhill, and was able to purchase this piece of property, which is 127 acres, and Planted the vineyards they purchased in 88, planted the vineyards in 88, opened the doors for Lakeridge Winery in 1989. They dissolved everything from Lafayette and slowly moved everything down here and kind of recreated a new corporate structure. In 1996, they opened San Sebastian, which is our sister winery. That's up in St. Augustine. So that's a different brand, and they did that for two reasons. One, they didn't know at that time if San Sebastian as a standalone tasting room / restaurant would work without having the appeal of the vineyards behind them. Did they actually make wine here?
Yeah.
All the videos were shown that we produce and bottle everything here. But they did it for 2 years, so that was one. They didn't know if it was going to work. Two, and this was, I think, something that happened after the fact, but it gave us 2 spacings on every wholesale shelf. So every Publix, Target, etc. has most of our wines in stocks are Southern Red, Southern White, and then Vintner's Red, Vintner's White. So it doubled our distribution almost overnight. So that's been a big success. My uncle got involved probably in the mid 90s. He was kind of the one that took over opening San Sebastian, and he kind of runs that one, and then I run this one. But I'll kind of get in that story afterwards. That's kind of a brief history of opening and everything like that.
So growing up, man, was it weird to see like the family? I mean, it's not y'all's name, but is it weird to see your family product on the shelves at Publix and Target?
So you asked that, and a lot of people ask that, how I got involved, and I didn't really realize what we had growing up. So growing up, I knew my grandparents owned a winery. That's kind of the basis of what it was. I had been here once when I was 4 years old. There's a picture that I'll send you, and you can put up of me grape stomping out here. But I did not realize that it was this big of an operation until I was 24 years old, and I came down here and actually toured the place and looked at the financials and realized that it was a decent sized operation. It's weird. But it wasn't a legacy thing where growing up, I'm gonna go.
You're
down
gonna be
and
in the
work at
family business.
Yeah. It was never even a thought of mine nor my brother's.
Because your brother's here too, right?
He did a summer here.
Okay.
During college, kind of an internship thing, and it wasn't for him, which that's kind of what opened the door for me to get involved.
Yeah, because it's your uncle that runs it, and a lot of the, I guess some of the guys I've talked to who have family businesses, something similar. It's usually like grandfather, son, grandson, great grandson, but like yours kind of zigzagged there. So you weren't really like being groomed to come take over the winery someday.
Never. I mean, we would go to Thanksgivings. They still live up in Tallahassee, so 3.5 hours or so away. And since I can visually remember, I've never seen this nor our other location. I mean, since I was a kid or whatever. So certainly not groomed, which I think kind of makes it a cooler story. Makes it that it just kind of fell into place. I majored in accounting in school, which I can get into that, but kind of followed his footsteps a little bit from the first get-go, and kind of just all fell into place.
Growing up, going to Thanksgiving, Christmas, was it always this wine on the table?
I want to say it was, but
you kind of have to, right?
Kind of have to. My granddad's real good. He enjoys our wine a bunch. My uncle does too, but he's got his certain Cabernet Sauvignon that he's drank for probably 15 years. They're creatures of habit, both my uncle and my granddad. To no fault, but
Well, people like what they like, but also and we can probably get into this, but I feel like this is really, there's an art and a science here, and like most artists, they steal from other artists that they really enjoy and like.
Absolutely.
And so very similar, I imagine.
100%. Yeah. And we'll get into that if I talk about my winemaker at all. He's, very much like that. And he's worked all over the world, multiple wineries, and kind of takes everything from those and kind of puts it into what we produce here as well.
Yeah. So, well, first I want to try this because so cheers, man.
Cheers. So this is our 2023, our current version of the Napa Valley Cabernet Sauvignon. It's big, it's bold, very dry, great with a good steak.
Oh man.
I mean, any kind of steak, ribeye, anything fatty. But kind of here at Lakeridge, our mantra is, 10, 15 years ago, it was white wine is paired with fish and chicken, and red wine is paired with, a heavy red meat. And our mantra is, why don't you just eat what you like and drink what you like and pair it that way? We give recommendations, but everyone's palate is so much different. You and I can taste things completely different. So pair it how you like it. So I would recommend this with a red meat because that's what I like to do, but you can pair it with whatever you want. But it's a good wine.
No, that is a great wine and amazing Friday at 10 a.m. That this is totally okay on the job.
Right.
Couldn't have done that 6 months ago.
Exactly.
But all right, so let's get into so winery opens in '88. Plant the first grapes here in Clermont, and then you have some early memories, but it wasn't until you said you're 24 that kind of eyes wide open, like holy cow! Like, I mean, at that point, how many people were employed here?
So throughout the entire corporate structure, we've got about 90 to 100 full-time equivalent employees.
That's a big operation.
It is, yeah. And it's multiple different facets, and we kind of look at it as, or I look at it as different, we do a different income statement for every department. Obviously, some of them don't technically produce income, but like maintenance, for example, but it all is separate. So there's 5 or 6 different iterations of the company that I kind of look at more deeply when I get involved in operations. But do you want me to kind of go back?
Yeah, let me hear about it, man.
Okay, well, so here at Lakeridge we're the brunt of the entire business. So we've got all the production is here, all the crushing of the grapes, all the processing, etc. So we're bottling for both here, Lakeridge, and San Sebastian. So we're bottling all their products as well. But we've got a maintenance department, retail, obviously, our wholesale division. We've got kind of the admin team, does a lot of behind-the-scenes books and whatnot, vineyard team, and then the production team as well. So there's multiple facets that kind of go into it, and that's kind of what's been great about my job is getting more involved with all of those. But really have to treat them as separate departments because that's really what they are. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, they all need to come together because our end goal is one thing, is selling wine, whether that's through the retail room or through wholesale. So that's probably the coolest part about what I do is managing all of those people, and seeing the day-to-day operations. Most of my stuff is done through operational efficiencies. How do I make things quicker, better, faster, as well as how do we sell more wine, through marketing, et cetera, getting people out here for our events and all that good stuff.
So you didn't go to school here.
Correct.
You went to school,
Nebraska.
Winemaking capital of the country. No.
Absolutely.
But you went to play tennis there, right?
Yeah.
So, and you majored in finance and accounting?
Yeah.
But was there, at that point when you first went into college, it was probably because, hey, I got a tennis scholarship and you're like, that's where I'm going to go.
Right.
But at that point, still no inkling that like, this is what I'm going to do when I'm done with my 4 years.
Absolutely not. So went to high school. I grew up in Colorado, just outside of Denver, little town called Littleton. Went to high school. I took an accounting class. I believe it was either first or second semester of senior year. And the biggest thing for me is I knew my granddad was a CPA and that he went through that route, and that kind of inspired me a little bit. But I just loved the problem solving of the accounting. There's an ultimate goal to get stuff balanced or produce a tax return, whatever it is. And it was problem solving to me. I'd always been good at math. And so it just clicked. So I kind of went into college, obviously with the tennis scholarship, kind of looked around at a couple of schools. Wanted to go to Auburn without a tennis scholarship and just kind of probably party and do whatever, which was probably a good thing that I didn't. But ended up getting a tennis scholarship to Midland University in Fremont, Nebraska, about 45 minutes outside of Omaha. And started and ended with the accounting degree. And I will give it all the credit, because the credit's due, is I got a very good education out of Midland. Small classes. I don't think I had a class over 35, 40 people. Knew my accounting professor, John Moxness. I mean, I could go meet in his office anytime I wanted. If I had a problem or a question, I could go and bug him anytime. Different from kind of those larger universities. But went into that, graduated with that, and then a minor in coaching. Always been a passion of coaching tennis. I did that most summers through college and high school as well. So I did that. Went into public accounting with a company called BKD out of Omaha, and
And was that the plan? Like going in, you're like, hey, I'm gonna get this finance degree. I'm gonna go work for a firm. That was the plan from the beginning.
right, yeah. Well, I want to say it was a plan. I wanted, going into college, it was a Big Four. I wanted to go to Big Four, which is, your KPMGs, Deloitte, things like that. But I think I picked the right ones. I had offers from both of those, but ended up picking the right smaller mid-tier accounting firm, but knew everyone, did auditing. So for 3 years out of college, I worked there, lived in downtown Omaha with one of my buddies, traveled around the state.
Shout out
Dylan Hatton Ellis. And it was great. It was a great time, traveled a bunch. And I say a bunch, travel can be put in quotations because traveling was to middle of Nebraska, and I stayed in some places that I would have probably never wanted to stay in my entire life. Look out the window, you see those videos now, it's like, oh, I travel for work, and you look out the windows and it's like a pasture or whatever, and that's exactly what it was. But I kind of got my focus in banking. I did a bunch of bank audits, which I really appreciated. The bankers were extremely organized. They pretty much did half the audit for you. They supply you the work papers, and you kind of just plug and play. Kind of worked my way up through there. So I was, in charge by maybe the first year, kind of running jobs, running some smaller banks. And then towards the end, I kind of delayed my start here because I had some commitments with some bigger banks that I told I would in charge, and made some contacts with some of the CFOs and stuff. But that was a great experience and great business experience to see all of these different companies. I didn't just do banks. I did a little bit of everything: grocery stores, etc., distributors, beer distributor, bunch of stuff. But it was awesome. I really did appreciate that job. But kind of, I guess 2022 January, I came down here for the first time, and just to take a trip, see the grandparents, see my uncle, and visited both wineries. And my granddad obviously knew I was in accounting and said, you want to look at the financials, or recent financial statements? And I said, of course. Obviously coming from an auditing accounting background. And so peeked around those and said, man, I didn't really realize that it was kind of this big of a deal. And that's kind of what got the ball rolling to move down here and take over. He said, he was very, very, very involved for the past 15, 20 years as far as on the financial side. And said,
This is your grandfather?
yeah,
Okay.
grandfather. I'll remember sitting up in his office and kind of looking those over, and then having a conversation just one-on-one with him. And he said, I kind of let some stuff go. Not let some stuff go, but more I've tried to take a step back. And some of the internal accounting stuff he was a little bit worried about as far as controls and everything that we have, financial controls at the wineries. So had those conversations, do you think you'd be a fit here? And that's kind of how everything started. So
Were you dating your wife at the time?
yes.
So how long had you guys been together when this kind of realization moment was happening?
About a year and a half.
Okay.
So pretty early on. We were just dating at the time. We were living together. But I think her mind was not ready for, hey, let's pick up and move to Florida. But those conversations were kind of had. I kind of had told her, after the conversations were had, and I think she started to get an inkling a little bit of what was maybe to come, the big ask.
Did she realize how big of a, you had just learned yourself, but did you go home and you're like, you won't believe this?
A little, and so she was on that trip with me, which was
Okay.
cool. So she saw this and she was just,
Wait
I
a
don't want
minute.
to say dumbfounded, but a little bit. We're not talking, Napa Valley size, but we're a decent size operation, especially in Florida.
I'll just share for the viewers that can't see this, but we were up at the what do you call the retail building?
Right.
Yeah, where you guys are producing, and then you're like, hey, let's go to the other warehouse. Oh, other warehouse, and I think you said there's 500,000 bottles of wine. You can't see them all, but that's a lot of wine.
Yeah.
It's not small.
It's a 15,000 square foot facility, and most of it is full of wine.
Yeah.
There's very few open spaces in here. So.
Besides the main walk through
Right.
the center, we're sitting in the only open spot.
Right. But yeah, so she didn't really know the ask, but I think she knew it was coming. So anyway, the ask was made kind of after that conversation was had. But I had told them I've got commitments through busy season, which is kind of, January through April for any accounting, whether it's tax or audit. So I had those commitments made, finished up. I think April 21st was my last day, and we actually took a week and a half trip and hit a bunch of national parks, my wife and I, and she actually had to do 2 or 3 more weeks of work. So I moved down here. I lived in an Airbnb for 2.5 weeks with my dog. I had one car full of stuff, my little Jeep Wrangler. That was all I had to my name, and started working here. So I did the bunch of internal accounting stuff, kind of just looking over controls. It was, I mean, pretty much all handled, but just kind of a checkup on everything. Our controller's been here for 21 years. She's a rock star. But kind of started there and looked over some stuff, and then the rest kind of fell into place. And I can get into that, or if there's anything else.
No, we'll get into that, but I want to ask because 90 to 100 people. You guys have been around for 40, almost 50 years. You mentioned that your controller has been around for 21. I mean, I have found in my recent travels with this podcast that companies even of this size have done a really well job of keeping kind of that family feel. So,
Absolutely.
Is that the case here as well?
Our tenure is unheard of. When we talk to insurance agents or whoever we're talking to, they can't fathom the tenure that we have. So our winemaker, and I'll speak on our new one, but our previous one that retired, I guess about 2.5 years ago, she was our first employee hired. She was with us for 41 years, and for many years when we went through Chapter 11, et cetera, she was paid in stock or not paid. I mean, she went through months of not getting paid and stuck it out, and now she's happily retired. But
So she came from Lafayette,
correct.
and then did she move down here?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, I cannot fathom working for a company, them going through Chapter 11 and be like, hey, we're moving, and be like, all right, where are we going? Like, what? That's incredible.
It really is. And she wasn't the only one. There was a couple others. There's a retail employee named Sarah who came down with the shift. She actually moved down here. She was a previous teacher, but then worked with us for a total of 31 years. But I mean, the amount of years, I was just talking to Doug, who's about to do a VIP tour. He's been with us for 21 years. Our production manager, 25 years. There's the long tenure.
Wow.
is crazy, and people can't understand it. There's some turnover in some of the departments, but it's not even comparable to the industry as a whole, and any industry. I mean, as you see probably every day.
Yeah, I mean,
we're very blessed.
when we owned our company, like you had independent contractors who basically ran their own little business, and you would see some longer tenure with them.
Right.
But the entry level employees, the middle, like that, just you don't get stuff like that. So
No.
testament to your grandfather and the culture that he built here.
Yeah,
And then
absolutely.
obviously your uncle picking it up for the last 20, 30 years.
Yeah,
Wow.
35. Yeah.
So your first job here, you're in kind of your controller kind of status, going through the financials. When did you kind of take that next step? Because I imagine that there was probably like, hey, you got to put some dues in here.
100%. So my dues were, I have done every single job at this winery that there is possible, which is a great thing. So early on, I did some internal accounting stuff. That kind of got, I did that relatively quick, and it was then slowly gaining the trust of my grandfather and uncle, of handing some more stuff off. And our previous COO, he hit the retirement when he was 65, so that was about 2 years after I had started. But it was kind of slowly taking some of the stuff that he was doing and a lot of the marketing stuff, some more of the vineyard practices.
I've seen you on some reels out in the vineyard.
Absolutely, yeah. The vineyard's got a special place in my heart because it has a special place in my grandfather's heart. That's kind of his pride and joy. But kind of took everything on. I worked a harvest season that first August. I was out there on the forklift or digging out tanks 30 days straight. Worked the bottling line. I've been a bartender. I've done everything at the winery. And what I very quickly learned is I'm extremely grateful that I did those things early on, because now I can tell someone in the vineyard or someone on the production crew, hey, do you mind doing this? Whatever the case may be, because I've done it, and they know that I've done it. I have no problem hopping on a forklift, helping out here and there. Even still to this day in my role, I was on the forklift yesterday, moving pallets around. It's something I'll never grow out of, but they really started to gain that respect very quickly for me because I was hands-on and I was doing all of those jobs. So did a lot of that stuff, started taking over a couple of things here and there, and then it was kind of right around harvest of 23 that our previous COO, he turned 65. It was kind of his time to retire, so he retired and I essentially took his role. I was kind of doing some of the things that he was doing, but that was kind of the onboarding of me doing, everything or overseeing everything. And that was a big change. It kind of happened all at once. I had a couple of weeks notice, but I had to, meet with all my department heads as far as all the different things that we have going on at the winery and kind of, not only reassuring them, but also just kind of explaining to them, this is how things are going to work. I'm a young guy. I just turned 29. I just wanted to make sure that they could look me in the eye and the same way that they looked at someone that was, tenured of 35 years experience. And it was a little bit of a, I don't want to say rough transition, but it was rough for me just to know that they respected me as I'm the big boss now. And I don't want to say that because I'm floating my boat, but that's what my role is. And I still have troubles with that day to day, and it's through board meetings and everything that I go to. I'm the youngest person in the room by 20 years. It's great, but it's also difficult. Do they look at me the same way they look at one of their peers that's the same age as them and has been doing it for 25 years? I want to say that they do, but in the back of my mind, I don't think they do. It adds an additional weight on what I do and extra pressure, but I think it's a good pressure. We've talked about it already, but I didn't see myself doing this 10 years ago when I started college at all. So
let's get a quick snapshot if you can. So 23, 20, you said 24, right? So you've not only have the winery here, but and San Sebastian, but you guys still have some property in North Florida. And we don't have to get into specifics, but this isn't a $1 million business. Like, you guys are doing really well. There's a ton going on. So the snapshot at the time of when you took over, what did the business look like?
So right around when I took over, we were probably distributing between 70 and 75,000 cases a year, that's just distribution. All in all, we're about 150 to 170,000 case facility, as if you're looking at the company as a whole, which is a lot of wine. We're not top 10, top 50, but we're probably top 100 in the country as far as wine that we produce and sell to consumers. It's a big operation. So, and you spoke on prosperity. So that's the vineyards up north. So we've got 450 acres up there. About 120 of it's planted. But me and my granddad kind of split oversight on that. So I kind of spoke on me being involved with the vineyard a little bit. So
He just couldn't completely.
He still goes up there. So he plays tennis 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, from about 9:30 a.m. till 11:30. So I know I'm not getting a call, or he's not answering.
That's your deep work time.
Yeah, no kidding. Or early in the morning. But he still goes up there once, twice a week. He still comes down here. In the beginning, every other week. Then it kind of turned to monthly, and now it's almost quarterly, which makes me feel great because he kind of knows that things are moving along here. But so when I took it over, I spoke on the cases. About 200 acres planted of vineyards. I kind of held overall oversight of all of the harvesting that was done. So we harvest, it really depends on the year, between 1,000 and 1,500 tons of grapes a year. So along with the vineyards that we have, we contract with about, it's dropped a little bit, but at that time it was about 200 acres that we contract with. So we're harvesting their land, about half of it, and then half of it we're actually getting shipped to us. So logistics of all the grapes that we're receiving. If anyone out there during August, I can't be reached. and I probably don't want to be reached for the next, 15, 20 years. My uncle continues to say, you can kind of step away with that, but it really is a cool time of year, how much we're doing.
So I guess the two questions I have for you, man, on that is, one, how did you not let that go to your head? Like suddenly you're CEO of a top 100 winery in your late 20s. And two, how did you not crumble under that pressure?
Honestly, the first thing I'm going to say is my wife. She's my backboard, and she's received. I mean, she can tell you if she was on this podcast, she'd probably be yelling at me, but just because of the amount of stuff that I bring to her. But she was my backboard on so much of it, and really to this day she still is. But there was a huge transition point at that point where there was a tremendous amount of stress that put on myself, but I mean probably also put on her. But really the adaptation of what my day-to-day looked at prior to what it was, being up in an office crunching numbers or doing a lot of the internal accounting stuff to meeting and just spending time with my managers and getting to know them better, getting to know their operations better, getting to know their staff better, my staff better. And that's what made it the smoothest transition possible. There was a lot there. There was times where I wanted to crumble, but being a family, their blood's thick, but it's also thin. Leaning on my granddad and uncle for any questions that I had was huge. But going down and really just connecting with my staff, my employees, was the biggest saving grace, because I knew that I had people that could pick things up that I was worried about. And those things that I was worried about got corrected very quick, or they're a work in progress. And that was really the biggest thing, was connecting with my people. We've got a great staff here. I've spoke on the tenure, but the tenure of some of these people has been awesome. They've been through a little bit of everything. So that was probably the biggest thing.
Do you think this is probably a cut deep kind of question, but if you were at any other company and that amount of pressure was on you, do you think you would have pushed through it, or do you think it's because it's a family business that you just gritted right through it?
Honestly, probably because it was a family biz, I gritted through it.
Yeah.
And
the unlimited wine to drink
right.
your way through it.
It wasn't as much throughout the transition. I mean, that was part of it, but it's a lot of the stuff that was to come. Everything wasn't thrown on me the first day. I mean, I don't want to make it seem like that, but there's been stuff and there's been changes within our staff and our managers that dealing with those and figuring out new personalities and things that they're good at and not good at and picking up some of the slack. That's where some of my stress has came from, but worked through it. And to answer your question, probably not. I probably would have, yeah.
I get it. I mean, when times got tough and we're like, my wife and I went through her journey, which I've spoken about, we're like, hey, let's sell this, because we loved our employees. Don't get me wrong. Our employees were phenomenal. I would do anything to hire them back. But I don't want to own a dog grooming business again. Right.
Absolutely.
And then you're going through some newer things now. We were just talking before we turned the cameras on, but you didn't get a great night's sleep last night.
No. So we've got a little one at home, about 3.5 months old, so almost 4 months, I guess. Well, we got 9 days. That's been quite the journey.
You really are such a numbers guy, because you have it down to the number of days until she's 4.
Absolutely. And that's just 4 months, not 4 years old. But no, she's been awesome. She's probably been out here more than I was as a kid. I mean, every event, every festival that we've done, she's been out here, which has been great. But I mean, that's just another set of obstacles that me and my wife have both worked through. She took a new job recently, and she's kind of learning new things, kind of a similar transition to what I did, working on one side of things to taking a lot more on and a lot more quote unquote admin stuff on, which she's liking / not liking. I mean, it's just a lot all at once, which is kind of the same way that I've felt and kind of still feel sometimes. But she's doing great. Little one's doing great. Appreciate you asking about that. But yeah, everything's good there. But adds another mix to everything. And kind of speaking of mixes, we've kind of mixed things up. So ever since COVID happened at the winery, so previous to that, we did a festival every month. So that was kind of what people expected, what they were used to at the winery. We had monthly festivals, and then during the weekends we didn't really do anything besides our regular tours and tastings. And that's kind of been another thing that's thrown on me is bringing back the festivals. Now that we're out of COVID, we kind of moved to it's called Weekends at the Winery, which works out great, very easy on the staff, low staffing, but just live music and food. And there's a wine and food or wine and beer bar out there. But we've brought some of the festivals back, bigger festivals. So being in charge of that is kind of something that I've never been involved with as far as the marketing and whatnot. And so that's been thrown onto my plate. And I don't want to say I'm good at marketing, but we've had some decent turnouts. Our wine fest that we had back in February was the biggest wine fest that we've ever had. It was actually wine fest number 31. So we had obviously wine fest 30 in 2020. I think that was the last festival that we had before COVID. But makes me feel good about kind of the stuff that I'm doing, rewarding. Seeing the numbers from that and everything was fantastic.
I wanted to actually ask about the seasons that you guys have had over the last couple of years. Obviously, this year, I shouldn't say obviously, but this year we had some pretty crazy freezes. And I know that, just down the road, the Hill family, they had lost, I think it was a third or 2/3 of their blueberry crop, and seeing all their videos of them trying to preserve the fruits and stuff out there for the U-pick. I imagine that was one of those times where you guys were all hands on deck.
So surprisingly not.
Really?
Yes. So we had, which makes me feel good, makes probably all of our staff feel good. We had calls out the wazoo. Are you watering? What's your,
People
and when
asking
I say
for
watering,
advice?
if we're throwing water on the vines to freeze them out. But no, so the vines go dormant usually end of October, early November. They lose all their leaves. They look like sticks out there. Everyone that comes in during, I say November to February says, is everything dead out there? It's like, no, they're not dead. We just say they're sleeping.
Okay.
So they were all dormant at the time. The only thing that it really did was push out our bud break. So our bud break this year was about 2 weeks late compared to prior years. And when I say bud break, I mean, it looks like sticks on the vines grow up and they grow across the trellis, but it just looks like sticks, and then the buds pop out and break, and then that's obviously what creates the grapes. But it was about 2 years, or not 2 years, that would be problematic. 2 months late, or 2 weeks late, excuse me. But those couple of months, it was not a problem.
Wow.
Any of the freezes, yeah.
That's actually, I was not expecting that answer.
Yeah. So I was actually at a viticulture advisory committee meeting yesterday with a couple of people that grow blueberries, and not only the Hill family, but also a couple of other growers, big growers, and they lost, yeah, you're right, between 1/3 and 2/3 of their crops. Some of them claimed crop insurance and stuff like that. So we're lucky enough that it doesn't really affect us down here in the Panhandle. 2 years ago, it really did affect us. We had a late spring, like kind of right around March 9th or 10th. We had a frost that probably killed about 50% of our production.
Wow.
So that's when we're more worried about it once bud break happens, which is usually about early March.
Wow, that's incredible. Hill family, I'm coming for you next on the pod. So I would love to learn a little bit about the vines, I guess. So they go dormant, and I'm also thinking about like the strawberry bushes and stuff that I grew in my backyard, and like the different pop-up crops. Like I have to replace those
Right.
every year, every couple of years, right? That's not the case with grapes. How what's the oldest, I guess?
So we actually took over. So there's really, I mean, if you look up on ChatGPT what the, estimated lifespan of a muscadine vine is, they would probably say, I've never looked it up, but probably 15 to 20 years.
Wow.
But up in the Panhandle, we actually have some vines that are 58, 60 years old. So we assumed that property before we even built Lafayette. That's where the original grapes came from. The cordon, so the vine grows straight up to the wire, and then we stretch it along, which that's called the cordon, that main stretch along the side. The cordons, they're not shrinking, but they're not growing. So there's open wire, which in a vineyard setting, and my granddad will tell you this, if there's an open wire, you're not making any money, which is very true because there's not a grape on it. But these 58, 60-year-old vines are still producing between 10 and 12 tons an acre on a good year, which is fantastic. So we can't justify bringing them out. But the trunks on these are, I mean, they've got to be bigger than a 6 to 8 inch post. I mean, they're massive. Wow. So they're theoretically, after 50 years, you can call it something an old vine. So we floated the idea of, keeping those grapes separate and doing like an old vine muscadine wine off of that, just because it's customer appeal. They're used to the old vines in and stuff like that. But there's really not a timeline that we figured out. There's a mother vine up in North Carolina that I think is 300 or 400 years old.
Well, I mean, isn't that kind of the appeal that a lot of folks have from like the Rhone Valley and Bordeaux, is that these vineyards have been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, and like it's just, I mean, it's the story of wine.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, and I think that's something that I really love and appreciate about wine. I'm a Rhone Valley kind of guy myself, right, as well as Napa Cab, and of course you guys. But I love the story that comes along with it.
Absolutely. And that's kind of what I think his idea is creating something that's specific to that vineyard, whether it's, just doing that and doing a sweet run of that. I think it would have more hints of cherry and stuff. So, and I'll speak a little bit, all the vineyards that we process, so we've got 5 or 6 total that we pick from, is the biggest thing is, how do we make that into the same wine every year? So our wine isn't vintage. So your Southern Red that you pick up today should be the same that it is or was 5 years ago. That's our goal, because our customers love it. Our Southern Red's 45% of our sales. How do you do that when you have such a mix of grapes and such a mix of ages? Is the biggest tool that we have is blending. So blending those vintages back together. We usually only keep stuff in the tank, ideally for a year and a half. Muscadines really don't thrive after 3 to 5 years, so we try and get it out the door and tell people to chill it and drink it when they can and come back and buy more. But that's kind of a pain point that we have. It's very different from a Cabernet Sauvignon. So this is a 2023. I mean, put this on its side and it would be fantastic in 10 years. Mm-hmm. Probably even better than what we're drinking today. Ours is much different, that we're selling it, we're saying, hey, hopefully you go and drink this, maybe not tonight, but maybe the next night or next week, and come back and buy more. So
well, I mean, that's what people love you, right? It's a good wine. I can drink it now. I don't have to buy it and then put it in my wine fridge and wait 5 years for it to be good. Right. And it's that there was Anthony Bourdain, the celebrity chef. I loved his books, but he had this idea of utility beer, right? So like you could buy the nice expensive beer, and like that was great for an experience, right? But also you needed a beer that you like when you hung out with your guy friends, or a regular night you're grilling, that was just the one you went to because it was always good. Right. And on the flip side of that, we'll keep it in the wine world, but like my understanding from Dom Perignon, the reason why it's so expensive is because it's so hard to grow grapes there, that you may not have enough grapes in a season to actually have a vintage, and they only do a vintage year, is my understanding. Right. Whereas you guys have cultivated a product that's good whenever. Right. And of course, there's also the business side of like, yeah, come back and buy another case, but and you should buy by the case.
Yeah. Got case specials. So
that's awesome, man. Well, I guess, what does the future look like for you guys? Right? Do you want to take over the family business someday? Is that a goal? Have you thought? I mean, I know your daughter's only 3.5, almost 9 days short of 4 months. But have your wife and you talked about like what the future looks like? Like, is she going to be in the family business if she wants to?
Well, so if anyone couldn't catch what she does, she's a nurse, and she just took over kind of a nurse management position. She's always made the comment that she wants to be involved. My grandmother is currently the secretary of the holding company, which is Steven Inc. And she kind of wants that role at some point, wants to be a stay-at-home mom, etc. But I don't know. That's a tough question because working with the family that I already work with is tough enough. Working with my wife might throw another I don't want to say knife into that.
You
but
sure you want this out there on
exactly.
the podcast players?
But no, she loves what she does. She's great at it. I could not be bedside nor doctor or anything. I'm just not caring enough, honestly. She's fantastic. But there's been succession talks a little bit. I think probably in the next 5 or so years, that'll kind of transition over. Really what we have going on here is, I don't want to say majority of the business, but it kind of is, as far as all the operations are done out of this location. And I feel pretty adept as far as understanding all of those. The biggest kind of outside thing to that is the wholesale distribution. We've got a great wholesale manager that's been with us, again, 15 years. He came from a distributor, so he knows the distributor on that side of the world very well. But then obviously our other location, which really at this point is just a tasting room, retail room. And then the third floor, we previously operated a restaurant up there, and now it's kind of a management agreement where there's a great chef that took it over, a very high-skill restaurant. And that was great for our business because he kind of changed the narrative on who we're seeing there after hours, and even during hours, what they expect for lunch. It's white tablecloth during the week as far as dinner, and on the weekends kind of upped our customer base a little bit as far as high scale a little bit, and that's worked out really well. But kind of up there is just worrying about their operations of that retail room and stuff. But there's been talks that have been had, and I mean I feel I'm ready enough. I mean I kind of got this not thrown on me, but kind of dropped into with relatively short notice, and I feel I'm doing a relatively good job. And this is really the big portion of it. So this is the end goal. And I mean, I didn't really touch on, but I worked in Omaha for about 3 years, and kind of told my wife one day that, hey, I've got this opportunity to work at the family business. We got to move down to Florida though. And she was very open to it. And
oh no, sunny beach weather. I don't want to leave Omaha.
I think that was the original, and then it was, but I won't be by my family, which has been tough. We don't really have any family nearby, but she made that jump with me, and we kind of
immediate family. You got
correct.
your uncle, yeah,
right. More her immediate family. Mine's kind of spread all over, but we were just back there last weekend. It was great. All the great grandparents got to meet the little one, Leighton Lynn. But it was definitely a jump and definitely a transition, and kind of if you're playing a poker hand, we kind of went all in. Packed up everything that we had, which was one Jeep's worth of stuff. Sold most everything, brought our clothes and belongings or whatever, our dog, and that was about it. But kind of just put all in and came down here and hoped that it would work out, and it has so far, but hope that it does for the next 20, 30, 40 years. I hope that I can, I don't want to say a groom, but I hope that I'll obviously give her the option just like I did, or had, but see my daughter out here working, I'll probably throw her to the wolves and say, hey, let's go prune these vines and see how she takes it. And got to do the hard work before you kind of get put on the throne. I don't, if that's a good analogy or not.
Yeah, on top of the cases of wine. One of the questions I have for you, and then we'll kind of wrap it up, but this is a very, I would say probably labor-intensive manual, right? And there's the art and the science of it. We touched briefly on your winemaker earlier, but with all these businesses and everyone wants to start an AI company and an app and technology, I mean, how do you view this business? Obviously, there's AI tools you guys can use in the accounting, but when it comes to making the wine, like, it has to be that scientist, that artist.
So I told you about Jeannie, who was our previous winemaker. She was here for 41 years. I mean, she nailed and pretty much created what is now Southern Red, Southern White, and Vintner's Red. Vintner's Red, Vintner's White, which those are our two biggest sellers. So Southern Red and Vintner's Red are about 45% of our sales. Southern White, Vintner's White are about 20%. So you've got 65% of all of our sales are those two wines, and we produce 19 in total. She nailed those down. So essentially the recipe, just like Coca-Cola's recipe, it's a hidden secret, was passed on to now our new winemaker, Andrew. So he's from New Zealand. He's worked in Italy, south of France, north of France, kind of all over the world. And then his last stint was 20 years at a winery out in Missouri. And so he did a bunch of sweet wines. It wasn't muscadine, but it was similar. And kind of took it over, personal recommendation from Jeannie. She knew him from different wine competitions and judgings that they had done throughout the years. Knew him, and he came from St. James Winery, and felt like it was a good opportunity for him to exit that and start something new. So he's got a great house down in Howey in the Hills, and he's been a fantastic addition. And what his expertise is he's a true winemaker. He really, I mean, this Napa Cap, he knows, he receives it. And he's very involving with me and a lot of the retail staff, because they're the ones that are ultimately selling the wine, is bring them in for tastings. And hey, I got this wine in, and it's raw. So when we buy bulk wine, it's raw wine. So he oaks it, tannins it, etc. But he'll sit there with his little pocket knife, cut little tannin things open, and put it in there, swirl it around, mix them between a couple glasses. Try this, or try this now, try this next. And he really, that's just how his mind works. He's just creative. It's done great for our non-muscadine wines, but he's just, it's plug and play on the muscadine side of stuff as far as our Southern Red and other ones. But
It's tried and tested.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, from day one and before he was even hired, we, that stays how it stayed, because it's been the same for the past 30 years plus. But the other stuff he's really creative with. He's done a great job with our staff, and all that stuff. But it's a lot different from what we're seeing in our, I don't want to say industry, but just the country as far as businesses go, is adapting a lot of AI. We've done a little bit as far as streamlining some processes, but it's really a hands-on approach when it comes to obviously crushing the grapes and then mixing the wines. They're University of Florida, and I had a meeting with them yesterday actually. They're adapting an AI tasting model for muscadine wines, which I don't know if I like that or don't like that. I'm kind of in between it, but there's nothing better than a winemaker or a retail staff or customers saying, hey, we're trying out this new wine. Tell us what you think. Do you like this one or this one better? That's how we determine what we're going to produce. It's very much different from what's going on in the world, really, as a whole. Mostly hands-on with everything, and that's been really the best part about it.
Yeah. Do you have any fear of taking on the next stage when that comes?
A little bit. Really, what my fear is our generation is so much different than the baby boomers or whatever, older generations that were so used to coming in the winery, coming down, buying 2 or 3 cases, and going back up and staying in and being very brand loyal. We're seeing a huge shift of loyalty and wanting to try new things. I don't know if you can put the 2 and 2 together. I don't know about you, Chance, but I go to a new brewery or even go to the store and I want to try something new. What's cool? What looks cool on the shelf? Whether it's alcohol or not, whether it's meat or whatever. You want to try something new if it pops up. I think that's kind of our generation's thing. Is my granddad and uncle, they drink the same wine every single night. Our generation, I like to drink something new. I like to try something new. If I find something I like, I'll keep it in my back pocket, but it's like going to the store and saying, man, that's a cool label, or I didn't know that they produce that grape out of X, whatever, and trying something new. That's a huge obstacle, as well as, THC is coming into into play with everything as far as our consumers. But biggest concerns, obviously, demographic that we're serving to, and just overall responsibility of kind of the big decisions that come into play as far as the winery. That's really the big things that worry me. A lot of the wholesale side of stuff, price setting, having those tough conversations when prices do increase. We've taken hits on bottles, labels, corks. Everything has gone up for us. We haven't increased the price of wine, but when that point does hit, we've got to increase it. It's those tough conversations, and telling retail staff, you got to tell the Joe that comes in and gets a case every other week that we went up $1 a bottle and up $12 a case. It's those bigger conversations, and luckily with the staff that we have, I'm not extremely worried about that. But it's kind of those bigger picture decisions and stuff that I'm more worried about than anything.
All right, last question for you. Obviously, it's 11:30 now, or 11:25. We've had a glass of wine. Have you or have you not had a tasting where you got back to your desk and you're like, man, I need a cup of coffee? Like,
absolutely. Actually the best comparison is picking out this wine. So it was before a board meeting, which our board meeting was at 10 o'clock. And at 8:30, our winemaker brought up 2 boxes of samples. So 24 samples of wine that me and my uncle had to try to determine what we wanted to have this 2023 vintage. And it was before the board meeting, in person, our stockholders meeting, that I had to give a decently big presentation and taste 24 wines, which you can sip and spit, like that's what they do at a lot of the competitions, but I can't get the right taste unless I swallow the
there's
wine.
taste buds on the back of your palate.
It's like, so I'm not a perfect taster or whatever, but tasting those 24 wines, I'm like, once we got it, I stood up, I'm like, man, we probably need to
go for a walk.
Have
a cup of
drink
coffee.
a cup of coffee and kind of come back. And we gave our recommendations, and tasting 24 wines at once is a little bit of a dangerous thing because, the first 10 or 12, you can say, I really like this one. You can kind of pick them out. But once you get past those, it's like, I don't have a very good palate, but they kind of all start blending together. And so
what's that?
I probably didn't give those the right.
I just brought up that idea, or that scene from Schitt's Creek when they're trying all the fruit wines, and she's like, that one tastes like nail polish. Oh, man. Well, hey, man, I appreciate you having me out here. You and I met thanks to Dylan, and I didn't know what you did. And we sat down at dinner, and you just, casually mentioned what you do. And I'm like, well, that's pretty freaking awesome, right? And obviously this, winery's been a part of my family's history. Just, obviously my sister-in-law loves the wine. My wife's best friend loves the wine. My family lives over here. Also, my family lives over here in Clermont. So, like, been out here before. My kids, I have pictures of my kids on blankets at some of your guys' events out here. And so to get to meet you and then get to kind of, slowly get to know you over the last couple of years, it's been exciting. I'm excited that you have a little one now because you're part of Dad Fight Club. Hopefully you're going to come to the golf event in a few weeks, the first annual Dad Bod Golf Scramble. But I have no doubt you're going to crush it out here, man.
I appreciate it.
You've been crushing it. I've never heard a bad story of someone coming out here. I've never had a bad glass of wine from you guys. And so I appreciate you having me out, man. I'm looking forward to what the future looks like for you.
I appreciate it, Chance. No, thanks for having me on. Yeah, and that's the cool thing about running a winery is it's hard for someone to come out here and have a bad time. And people will always complain about something, but there's very little to complain about in what we have. And I'll give you some B-roll to throw over, show people kind of what they're looking at, but as far as the vineyards and event space and stuff like that. But I appreciate it.
Cheers, man.
Cheers.